Town Hall. Before we get started on the topic, I would like to thank our sponsors, which are SunWest Builders, Miller Lumber, and Volcanic Theater Pub. So thank you very much to them to make this possible. So tonight, the town hall is about a very important topic as we go through the transition from overseas to veterans coming back to the U.S. and trying to find jobs. It's called The Business of Being a Veteran. So we have an excellent panel tonight, but what makes these town halls even better is if you are prepared with your questions and get involved in the conversation so that we get as much information as we can out of tonight's discussion. I don't know if I introduced myself. Michael Lalonde, I'm the chairman-elect of the Chamber of Commerce. Thanks, Jamie. And let me turn the microphone over to Jamie Chrisman, who's the Director of Leadership Band and Community Affairs for the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Michael. You do such a great job of reminding everybody to participate, but just as importantly, thank you all for being here tonight. And how about a big round of applause for our panelists that are here this evening, right? But it is going to be really important that we engage with one another. And before we get started, a couple of things that I'd like to announce. I know that Bonnie and the sweet ladies of our staff have done a great job of making sure that the word got out about this particular program. And in doing so, we have something exciting coming up. The Chamber has taken on the tab, the time, and the complete glorious opportunity and blessing to help put together the Veterans Day Parade. Okay? So big bravo to the team for that. We hope you get signed up and stay involved because it's been a real blessing to all of us as well. And that being said, another set of folks that I would really like to thank for the blessing that they gave tonight. How many of you got in for free tonight? Ultimately, that's what I'm talking about right there. A big round of applause, appreciatively, to veterans themselves and representatives John Huffman and Jean Wisnett for contributing to your registration this evening. And as we set the tone for tonight's event, I want to remind you we have these every month. And I know it's summer and, you know, nice to get out and go play, but when you get a moment, you can come be involved in your town hall. Our next one starts off our campaign season. So, August 5th, Tuesday, August 5th, we will hold the Oregon House District 54 candidate debate with Dr. Newt Bueller and Craig Wilhelm, both of whom I know are here tonight. So a big round of applause for both of them. I know they're in the house. But also, the business of being a veteran. You know, this idea was brought to me. I'm very open to these topics and ideas, and I felt very grateful. Barriers and opportunities in jobs, entrepreneurship, and more. One quick thing I'd like to remind everybody in the room, not only are many of you here as veterans, family supporters, in some capacity to our servicemen and women, but we have if I understand it correctly, please do correct me, 350 returning servicemen and women coming back from Afghanistan this fall. Is that not correct? Am I right in that? Is that what we've heard? Right? So not only do we have current jobs, employment, and other kinds of issues and opportunities, we really can figure out where to house ourselves now. And we know, of course, the big issue, the bank has the blessing of it not being as bad of an issue, but still very important, and that's of healthcare. So tonight when we set this forward, I'd like to just go ahead and share with you a quick quote. You can tell the measure of a society by how they treat their young, their old, and their veterans. And it was actually our president and CEO, Tim Casey, who's also a veteran and couldn't be here this evening. His back is just completely debilitating him, that found that and shared that. And one of the observations that came to mind is that veterans, we are told, make for great leaders. Would you agree? Yeah. often possess valuable skills and expertise, detail-oriented, driven, beyond what many of us recognize or perhaps even understand. When it comes to employment, they can be faced with many challenges. Multiple deployments, misconceptions about PTSD, civilian reintegration, and even the transfer of skills to a resume or application so as to be easily interpreted by a potential employer. That too can be difficult. Compounding these issues are a lack of affordable housing, a respectful but not fully cultured local military community, and of course, uncertainties in healthcare. So here we are tonight with a panel of us to have this discussion, and though we've got microphones, we can keep this much more conversational about how to get you engaged, how to get information from them. There are key people in the audience as well. So with that, if you would, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome J.W. Terry, U.S. Navy retired Master Chief, the current president of Central Oregon Veterans Outreach, the president for the Band of Brothers Oregon and Ben, American Legion Post-War Vice Commander, and former Navy JROTC to Mountain View High School. Big round of applause to Mr. J.W. A regional veteran himself with the employment of Oregon Employment Department WorkSource, Oregon Army National Guard, Iraq 2010, 3rd Battalion, 116th Brigade. I know he's very nervous, but happy to be here, Mr. Jim Seaborn. Thank you, Jim. Cindy, your title is so long and so accomplished. If only people knew what heart, soul, effort, education, and time you've put into being a local advocate for both men and women for veterans' health. But you became more than just that for health, but an expert on issues that you even taught me about. We're an amazing community for support and respect when it comes to veterans, but we are not necessarily educated about the military culture. And that is a new area that means we might miss signs and cues from people who don't necessarily easily self-identify, and that could have wonderful opportunities, support, could be just something as simple as merely the respect. So please help me welcome this evening somebody who I know has dedicated a great deal of her own time as a DNP, FNP-C, APRN, but basically your local nurse practitioner who is the local men and women's veterans health advocate and expert, Cindy Warburton. Gary, you know, when Cody and I first got on the phone, I mean, he made it clear that you have noticed a difference between 20 years ago and now with regard to PTSD. It's wonderful that we're more knowledgeable about it, right? But it also comes with stereotypes and other conditions that might surround it. So how can we get through this and other kinds of reintegration issues? So LCSW team leader at the Central Oregon Vet Center, please will help me welcome Gary Hunter. And Mr. Simons, I knew I knew your name, by golly, I knew, and I was delighted when you were referred my direction. I know that you hold a huge job right now, and that's a reintegration program, and you are the manager for Central Oregon in that, and we don't take it lightly. And you are the person to go to for the Hero to Hired program, is that correct? And you just kept it simple, retired Army. Please welcome Wayne Simons, ladies and gentlemen. Again, there are a couple other folks out in the audience that I know are kind of ready to give a little bit of their experience and time as well. But before we get there, Wayne, if you would just give us, and each one of you be thinking, just 2, maybe 3 minutes max, a little bit about who you are and what you do and how it relates to what we just teed up. Go ahead and grab that straight up and hold it always close, right up to the... Yeah.
So my name is Wayne. I retired Army National Guard, 26 years. I've been around veterans, obviously, for a very long time. Right now, my job is to help veterans, any veteran or their family member, try to gain employment. I work the Hero to Hire program, work for the Yellow Ribbon program through the Oregon Army National Guard.
Very straightforward, just waiting for us to get you some questions, right? All right.
Hi, I'm Gary Hunter, as I was introduced here. I've had 23 years in the VA. I'm also a very proud son of a World War II veteran. watching out through my life how my dad handled things and sometimes didn't handle things gave me a real son's point of view of helping veterans. And since I started my second career with the VA after graduating from the University of Southern California, I'm very, very privileged to have worked both outpatient, inpatient, post-traumatic stress disorder programs, and now with the Vet Center for 10 years. Started out as team leader at GE, and then became team leader over here when we started the Vet Center in 2010. It's been a real privilege working with veterans through the years, watching people change, making good choices, good decisions. The most important thing we can do is help our veterans have the best possible life they can, considering where they've been. Being in a war zone, you don't necessarily get PTSD in a war zone, but you do come home changed. And helping the veterans through those changes, reintegrating back into society, getting into work, learning how to have some fun again, and having a good life, that's what we're all about, and that's what our goal is down at the Vet Center, is to make a comfortable place to work on those kind of things so veterans can have an extremely good life. Thank you.
Those come off of there. It's easier to pull them out.
So while I'm not a veteran myself, I am married to a veteran, and I also want to let you know I'm not being loud.
Yeah, gotta keep it close.
Right
up
up
here.
And my daughter just returned last month from her first deployment in Afghanistan. Additionally, I just spent the last year completing some research on women veterans in our community. And what I found is, while I have a huge amount of respect for our VA and their healthcare system and how they care for our veterans, it became painfully apparent to me that our community healthcare providers don't necessarily share that military culture and appreciation for what our military members have gone through with their experience while they've been in the military. And so I'm working on trying to provide education and recommendations to our community providers right now that will hopefully help improve that.
Thank you, Cindy.
Hello, I'm Jim Seahorn. I'm the Regional Veteran Employee Representative with WorkSource. I came back from Iraq in 2011 and had a very rocky transition, as a lot of veterans do. Given the great community we have here in Bend, my own battle buddies that I serve with, my family and friends, my transition ended up being a success story. Now I have the blessing of being able to help veterans. My primary focus, though, is to help businesses find veterans for their positions they have available and answer any questions that have to do with veterans. So, with that being said, I'll hand it over to JW.
Hi, I'm Jay. Wow. I'm JW, and this is the first time I've been out of a t-shirt in a long time. My wife said I had to wear something with a collar. I spent 32 years in the Navy, retired from the Navy and went on the Sheriff's Department in Maricopa County, Arizona. Rolling around in an alley one night about 2 o'clock, and I was 50-some years old, decided that I needed to do something else for a living. And about a week later, I got a call about the NJROTC program, and it's a long story on how I ended up here in Bend, but from Arizona, but here I am. And I did that for about 12 years and retired here 2 years ago. Now I raise my great-grandson, and he's 3 years old, and keeps me in shape. And got involved with veterans groups because I am one. I love veterans, and I love what veterans do and what they stand for. And most of them come back into their communities or wherever they go and become not only a part of that, but leaders in that community. And they give back an awful lot to the community and I'm going to use the term veterans and civilian counterparts. Sometimes as veterans, we don't do well on letting the community know what we give back to the community unless you're on some board sitting next to them. But as groups ourselves, whether it's American Legion, VFW, all those veterans groups give an awful lot back. I know Greg does a fishing program for vets, and it just goes on and on and on, and we don't do very good because of our culture on letting the public know the kind of things that we do. And I'd like to start off the evening talking a little bit about vets, and then I'm going to pass it on to whoever wants to take it. One of the things a lot of people don't understand about the military culture, and I go to breakfast every Monday with 110 guys, and they go from World War II right up to current vets, right to some of my former NJROT students, some of who have done 3 tours and come back here to Bend and are out, some that have graduated from academies and come to breakfast with us, and then off they go. There are stories right here in Bend that most people don't even know about. You know, the guys that landed on D-Day, the guys that rode submarines, the guys that rode PT boats, the guys that flew bombers, guys that were shot down. The stories go on and on and on. Even us guys that eat breakfast with them every Monday, and I've been a member of, there were 75 members when I first got involved. Today there's over 3,500 of the Band of Brothers. Those guys sitting right over there with their vests on, 60 of them just help us escort 34 World War II veterans up to the World War II memorial. And you talk about a day and a good time. We had a day and we had a super good time. And someday I'll tell you the story about the Arizona lottery, or the Oregon lottery, if you want to know, and what a show they put on for us. The culture of the military guys at 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, this guy is in downtown Baghdad or wherever, Vietnam vet, wherever he was, and he represents the United States of America. And he may have 12 guys behind him that he's in charge of at 19 years old, and he has to make decisions that affect not only his life, but their lives, and not just for that moment, but forever. Most of the time, it's a good deal. And you do it day in and you do it day out. I was on ships most of my career. You get up in the morning and you start training, and you train all day long. And you may never see combat, and then again you might. But you train, and you train at that expectation constantly. And these kids are making 2 and 3 and 4 trips over there and coming back. And in some cases, we're asking them to flip hamburgers because they don't have a college education. And some of them don't want that. Some of them have 2 kids and a wife, and they're looking for a place to rent, and they're looking for a job. And $10 an hour on a 40-hour week doesn't support your wife and family. So for me, I take it very personal that we need to offer more than sales and retail and service jobs. We need to if there's jobs out there, we need to be talking as a group, all of us together, and clicking together on what we're doing. These are guys that are making decisions at 19 years old and are leading already, and in charge of a couple $1 million piece of equipment, and driving all over the place with it, and leading a bunch of guys. They're not just burger flippers. They're pretty well educated. In my 32 years in the Navy, I can tell you something. When they graduate from high school right now and they come to the Navy, we start training them in math and how to read right away. Because they're not up to speed where they need to be with the technology and the leadership and everything that goes on. Day one, after you graduate from boot camp, you're already being taught leadership. And you're taught leadership by somebody going, grab those 2 people over there, and I want this place cleaned up, top to bottom, trash empty, all of that. I'll be back in 4 or 5 hours and it better be done. So that's your first leadership lesson, and it continues on from them. It never stops. So when you see these youngsters and they come and you're interviewing them for a job, you can't treat them like somebody that just graduated from high school or just got their associate's degree from COICC. These kids are pretty sharp already. And I don't know who watched the news the other morning. Well, I'm retired, so I get to watch the news. but they were talking, and it was kind of stunning. Less than 2% of the graduates from high school right now can qualify to get into military service. It's a lot different than when I went in a lot of years ago. That the judge said you're either going in the Navy or you're going to do this. They don't do that anymore. If you don't have a high school education, not a GED, high school education, you're not going. And I think I'm probably over my 4 minutes.
You said some good background.
Everybody in here knows I can talk.
My friend and partner who has had a lot of experience with job fairs and dealing with veteran issues as well. Many of you may or may not know him, but he's going to help us facilitate this conversation along with me. He does, along with our crowd. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome David Blair.
Actually, I would like to react quickly to something you said, and maybe Jim, you're maybe best situated to respond to this. So, OAF folks coming home, how, in terms of the ability to find a job that can reasonably support, how bad is it? Go ahead, take a shot at that.
To be completely honest, it's pretty tough. It's pretty challenging for them. A lot of them come back to the job that they left, and a lot of times that job is leaving them underemployed, unable to care for their family in the way that they feel that they need to. For veterans, they have a very different mindset than their civilian counterparts. For a veteran, they have to have some sort of purpose. For them, purpose equals worth. If you don't have a purpose, i.e. a job, in order to provide for your family, they don't feel like they have any worth, whereas a lot of civilian counterparts can find their own worth in other activities that they do. But for a veteran, it's not. They need some sort of goal, some sort of mission to accomplish. So in order to, when they come home, typically they have about a month, maybe 2, where they don't want to do anything, see anybody. They want to sit on the couch, watch Breaking Bad, and be left alone, which is understandable. After a year or so of just go, 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 they need to wind down. You see problems when that stays for too long. But once they start getting out there in the workforce and trying to find jobs, I'd say the number one issue is translating those military jargons or skills or whatever, on the resume in a way that civilians can understand. When you think of military, you think sergeant or officer, but there's so much more to just those 2 words than what you read on paper, what you see on TV. A sergeant is a great leader, someone who's caring for these troops day in and day out, night and day. How is your family doing? How are you doing? It's a lot more than just leading someone. So it is a challenge. I think that one thing that the businesses, for some reason, nationwide, isn't just Central Oregon, which Central Oregon's pretty good, but nationwide, they don't recognize that the value of a veteran in your business is greater than the total cost for employing that veteran. So, and I'm talking with the amount that you pay for the training, for the retention, the hiring process, and the supervisor to supervise that veteran, you're still going to get someone who's more valuable than everything that you're forking out to employ that person. Hopefully that answers your question.
Audience, any questions?
You know what, you can come on up over here if you'd be willing to meet, because mine's kind of...
I hope I'm not comparing apples and oranges here. But when I got out of the Navy in 1984, I was in Chicago, and I got home on a Wednesday. The following Monday, I went down to a group called Jobs for Vets. I went in there, and he said, fresh out of the Navy, Electronics technician, you're going to AT&T if you can pass their test. They scheduled it for the following Thursday. Went down 2 weeks after I got home. I had a job with AT&T. I was with them for 6.5 years until they closed the office. Are there companies still out here, or are there companies that want to hire veterans and that you as a representative, regional veterans employment representative, if somebody comes to you, can you say, this company's hiring veterans?
That's a great
And
question.
find out what their background is and send them to that company and they have a heads up on a job.
I'll answer briefly and then I'll hand it over to Trigby to help me out. Yes, there are companies out there that will hire veterans. During the recession, however, it became very competitive. You know, they want specific skills from each individual, and without those skills, most of the time they won't even consider. If you're missing one, there's 17 other people that aren't veterans that have that skill that they're looking for. And so businesses are very cautious about who they hire, and they're very picky about who they hire because it's a recession and it's reasonable to be picky. So,
Do you see us coming out of the recession? Do you see some loosening up and greater opportunities now?
Absolutely. When I first got hired in this position, which was a little over a year ago, we had a whole bunch of job seekers, what we call job seekers, people looking for work, and not a whole lot of job listings. It was a challenge to get our community back to work. And as the year progressed, we've now entered into that kind of Goldilocks period where we're starting to see that we have enough job seekers and enough job listings where we're making pretty good matches. There's a lot of jobs out there that we do still have trouble filling, but I do see that we are coming out of the recession. We're starting to break into that point though where we're starting to see less job seekers and more job listings. More employers are starting to become able to hire or interested in hiring, seeing the value of hiring somebody that's going to help their business. Go ahead, Trigby.
Okay, my name is Trigby Bolgan. I'm the HR director at Bing Research. I was also recently appointed to the Governor's Workforce Investment Board, the State Workforce Investment Board. This is one of our big issues, is getting our veterans back to work that we're taking up at the state level as well. So as an employer, I've been very fortunate to work for several companies in Central Oregon that are employer or veteran friendly, which has been great because we realize that these guys come out, they've got leadership skills, they already know, they've got some mechanical background, things like that, and we've made a conscious effort to partner with the employment department and let them know that we are a veteran-friendly employer so that they know when they have a veteran and that they can bring it to us and we'll see if they match the job skills. Of course, we do have a few challenges, they've been mentioned already. When I get a resume from a veteran, my recruiters and hiring managers sometimes have a real hard time interpreting how those skills translate to what we do at our business. Another challenge that we have is fear of post-traumatic stress disorder. What we've done as an employer is if we do hire a vet, we actually partner them up with a vet that already works there, kind of as their mentor buddy, and help guide them through that. And I think if more employers did that, that would help the transition and ease the fears and things like that. So there are employers out there that are looking for vets and are vet friendly. We have jobs available that translate over from what they're doing in the service. We just need to know what skills you have so that we can match that up with what we're doing, and we'll put you to work.
Also, the Jobs for Veterans is actually the grant that funds my program. Is what it pays for my job. So that's still around. Since 1984, it's been around for eons. So.
Any of the other panelists want to offer perspective on this?
Actually, I'm going to throw Jimmy under the bus here for just a second. Sorry, guy. One of the problems we see in the Vet Center is reciprocity with the trades, for instance. We got guys that are deployed 2 or 3 times to Afghanistan and Iraq, even more than that. They stay in the service, they become a plumber, they become an electrician, they become a painter, and their skills are not recognized in the trades and the unions and so forth. And that's very rough. You got a guy that's got 7 to 8 years Done a great job. Should probably be a journeyman, I'm going to guess. I don't know how it all works just as long as they've been around the trades. Have you seen that? Is there any things being addressed for that?
Constantly. I see that all the time, and they are starting, the Pentagon and the Department of Defense is starting to tackle that issue, but it's, in my opinion, they're reacting instead of proactive. But,
Jim, could you state the issue clearly?
Sure. So veterans get all this training in the military. For example, we have a corpsman in the audience. I forget where she went. She spent years training to be a medic, to work on people who are injured in the field with using nothing but an aid bag or a backpack. And when these medics are coming home, they can't even be an EMT because they've never gone through the training and they don't have that piece of paper that says they have the education from a school. Or we also, in our Prineville, here in Prineville, National Guard unit, are vertical engineers. Their job is to build buildings. They're construction workers, they're electricians, they're plumbers, but they cannot get the equivalent of that job in the civilian sector because they never went through an apprenticeship, so it doesn't transfer from the military sector over to the civilian sector at all. There are a few that do. If it's a truck driver and they've only been out within the last year and that was their primary job, they can get their CDL, things like that. But that's a pretty easy one to tackle. It's just a license. But when it comes to certification, they can't just go take a test at a school to prove they have that knowledge. They have to actually go through the classes and learn all the things that the military already taught them or that have already practiced in country with wounded men and women in front of them, and now they've got to go prove that and pay for the schooling in order to do the job in the civilian world. So yeah, that's a very common, and I wish that I could flip a switch and make it all better, but unfortunately I can't. But that is a very common issue that we see.
So we've got a couple other comments from the floor, but I also, and I hope I didn't interrupt you, David, but because I know Wayne, are you just biting your tongue over there, waiting to respond with the Transitions Assistance Program? And I know Vivian's out here doing that too.
Absolutely. What they're saying is absolutely true. And but they're covering it pretty well. And if they come up with anything, I'm keeping notes. So.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go to an audience question. Please just quickly introduce yourself.
My name is Dusty, and I'm a Navy veteran. You were talking earlier, guys, to be able to have them train for jobs.
I wear hearing aids. I can hear very good.
Okay, me too. With unions, do you guys contact them to get apprenticeship programs started for veterans? Not so much from the Vietnam era, because most of us just works, but the guys coming back from Afghanistan and Iran and other places like that need something more than just, yeah, we want to be able to get you a job.
So if I understand you correctly, you're wondering if we contact apprenticeship programs to put them in some sort of trade school when they come home. And I do. I actually have a very good working relationship with not just the unions, but the apprenticeship program for the Bureau of Labor and Industry. He works right in my office. His name is Jeff Howard. I think I probably hacked that name up. Yeah, but him and I work really closely together. The apprenticeship opens up, and a lot of times their GI Bill will actually cover the training costs for that as well. It's just trying to show the veteran the value of actually getting a trade, as opposed to just working until you get a trade. You know, to actually get that education that they need. And the military nowadays is so education focused. In fact, per capita, you're going to find more veterans with a college education than you will civilians, because they're so educational focused. But to answer your question, yes, I do work with the apprenticeship programs. I work with the unions quite a bit. So, and we do have, like she said, the National Guard unit locally that's coming home, which Wayne will be working a lot with them as well. And we're already have a plan implemented to get maybe some of these veterans jobs before they come home. So that we are in the process of doing this, but it takes a community. It's not something that Wayne and I can tackle on our own, or even Vivian, she just ran off to. But it's not something we can all tackle on our own. It's something that the community, and this is a great community to do it in. It takes a community to reintegrate our veterans.
Which, Cindy, this kind of segues to you a little bit, in that you were the one who showed us how often might we miss the signs and cues and indicators if it's not necessarily somebody like Dusty said who's going straight to a situation where a union would help them out, some sort of training and education would help them out, then we might be able to point them, direct them into a certain area. And is that something that you've seen repeatedly? Can you respond to that?
Well, I'm in a little bit of an interesting situation in that I'm a family nurse practitioner in a community setting.
Hold on tight.
And so I don't get a steady stream of veterans coming to see me, but what I can tell you is I do get patients who come in who it's nowhere in their record that they're a veteran. They may even be a patient with a VA, and it's just not on our radar screen out in the community. And so what happens is they may have like a prolonged illness, just say for example they're suffering from depression. And then after you talk with them and find out their history and their background, it turns out they have all this experience that happened in the military, and that their depression is really stemming from an undiagnosed PTSD. And so if that's what you're asking, I mean, that's what I see in my setting, and I try to either redirect them with the resources that are available through the VA if they're eligible, or get them into resources that are available out in the community so that we can start addressing them.
But you're doing that. And what I'm hearing Jim say is that you and Wayne can't do it alone out there, and how many more of us could be educated as a community. And JW, you alluded to this earlier, that it wasn't just upon us as a community to become more educated about the signs and the opportunities, but also you've encouraged the group that you're around to be more communicative about who they are, and let it be a place of coming from how they want it to come out, but show that they give back to the community and how they're involved. In other words, how do we communicate back and forth? We've got 350 returning servicemen and women in the fall. How are we as a community going to be ready for that? On a conversational, on an integration level. And I know Wendy, I've been waiting over here for you. It's Wendy, correct? To comment as well, so.
She's just here to grade me. I want to be real careful how I say this. In every group, the World War II guys come back, they changed their clothes, they went to work when they could find jobs, and we kind of think that these guys just come back and all got jobs and went to work. That's not true. My dad come back, couldn't find a job in my hometown, went to see my uncle in San Diego, and my uncle was still in the Navy on submarines, and helped feed our family while my dad looked for a job. My dad got a job digging ditches in San Diego for 50 cents an hour. It was no easier for those guys than the Korean War guys coming home, than the Vietnam guys coming home, a lot of them sitting up here. We came home and you just kind of went out into the world and tried to find a job. They did the big drawdowns in the 70s after the Vietnam War, and we were all thrown out there to go find a job and the whole bit. So what's happening to our veterans now with the drawdown is not new. The other thing that's not new is they're coming back and they really don't want all this stuff that everybody wants to throw at them. They want to change their clothes, get back into society, the majority of them, I'm telling you, and maybe not even identify themselves as a veteran. For a lot of us guys, it took some years before we ever started. And like the Vietnam vet, when you're ready, I wanted nothing to do until I moved to Bend, actually, to do with veterans groups whatsoever. I got involved when I came up here to Bend and started getting involved in veterans groups. So those that expect, after the parades and all of that stuff, that these guys are just, raw, I'm home, I'm a veteran. I'm here to tell you it doesn't quite happen that way. They're going to meld in, and the sheriff's department here in Deschutes County has been very good. We got some programs going where they're helping to identify veterans so that they can be treated by the VA, so that they can, different things that can happen and get them out of that system so they're not in that vicious cycle of going back. Vets are very good about, once treated, not getting back into that system. So I'm going to leave it at that, but that's, you know, that happened to me. I know it happened to the World War II guys, happened to you guys. Am I not correct? You don't want to identify.
Well, I think that's a really important point, and certainly I see that out in the healthcare community, which is why it's so important that we're at least aware and we're asking those questions, and that would translate to the community as well. You know, just starting that conversation about, you know, what's your background, and finding out, you know, maybe not the details of their military experience, but just having some understanding of what it was that they went through, and helping them to reach their fullest potential. They don't have to.
I guess my point is sometimes they don't even identify to other veterans, let alone out together.
JW doesn't need a mic. Another thing I'd like to just piggyback on real quick. You were asking about if we do notice the warning signs, what do we do with those veterans? In order to understand the big animal that is veteran service providers, is that it's a big nasty animal. There's a lot of different organizations. There's federal, there's state, there's county, nonprofits. The second Thursday of every month, we have the Oregon Military Support Network, where all the service providers are invited to meet and network with each other at the administration building at the library at 8 o'clock in the morning. Second Thursday of every month. So the next one's next week on Thursday. And I'll be there, most of the people up here will be there, and we just get together and we talk about what services that we offer to veterans. And if you have a service that you'd like to offer, even if it's just you have a job that you'd like to find a veteran to fill, come and meet everybody, and it'll also help you give those referrals. If you know a veteran that's struggling with whatever it is, housing, you know where to send them to COVO. If it's mental health, you know to send them to the vet center. If it's employment, it's myself. There's a vast array. There's the Oregon Adaptive Sports. If they want to ski and they can't because they're broken somehow, they'll help them out. There's the Battle Buddies of Central Oregon that will help them get a service animal if they need a service animal for post-traumatic stress. So.
This is why we hold a town hall right there, Jim, is to connect people, help them understand what resources might be out there, and sometimes there's an aha moment, right? Get that opportunity.
It wasn't mine.
David,
So the VA's been in the news a little bit lately, and so these things that happen where we now have a kerfuffle with the VA, is a national kerfuffle. I would say it has mild application here, although I'm sure there's a difference of opinion on that in the room. But if it's a moment in time at which you could jigger some things and make the VA work better and serve better. And I think of this example of the training, of allowing skills to be more seamlessly translated. That's just astounding to me, and I hope you all will not keep that a secret. That's something elected people can work on that. It's what we call a really good issue in elected service. So what, if you were in a position to wave a wand, what would you have us work on at this moment in time to crystallize these services in a way that, Gary and I love that you're grabbing the mic. There's no media here, is there?
I don't know if I have courage or I'm crazy. I'm not sure right now. If I had my wish, let me start out with a story, first of all. In 2004, I was working in the VA Roseburg inpatient post-traumatic stress disorder program. And we were seeing vets, World War II vets, Korean vets, Vietnam vets, years and years and years after their service and after their post-traumatic stress disorder and all the other transition problems they had. In 2004, I made a decision because I didn't want to wait years and years and years and all the access problems that every VA does because it's a huge bureaucracy. It's very, very hard sometimes to navigate such a huge system. So I made a decision to come to vet centers. And the reason I did that is because they're small. Most of our people who work in the vet centers are vets. I'm the only one that's not. And to be real blunt, the only reason they hired me in the first place is because I'm a son of a veteran, so I can take a look at this stuff from a son's perspective. I really think that along with all of the good care that a lot of VAs do and a lot of the VA clinics do, there needs to be more vet centers. There's only 300 vet centers right now. We're staffed with anywhere from 2 people to 8, 9 people. I think being able to do that and do the things that we do with people walk in the door, we see them, see how they're doing, make an appointment with them. We work nights. Every night we've got somebody there almost, unless somebody's on vacation. I think those things are very, very important for the VA to find ways to provide more access. And even in the big VA, night clinics, Saturday clinics, those kind of things to get veterans in. And of course, resources. I mean, everybody talks about resources. We got a lot of hurting people out there. We're moving from the place where we were taking care of World War II and Korean era vets to a place where we got our Vietnam vets are getting older. And I got Vietnam vets that run the age from 60 to 76 right now, 16 years there. They come in and they have different issues, they have different problems. A lot of the younger guys are going, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I've got all this going on, I got a few years, big years left. I want to make it as good as I can. And then my 76-year-old and those kind of guys are dealing with life and death issues, as are some of our younger guys. So there's a broad variety of issues that we deal with, and it's really, really tough to try to have the kind of resources we need and the kind of expertise we need. Hopefully we can talk more people into going into the VA. It's very, very hard sometimes to recruit people to the VA. I've seen that with social work. I'm a social worker for a lot of years now. Sometimes it's very hard to get social workers to come to the VA because they get frustrated with the bureaucracy. And I hope, if nothing else comes out of this whole mess that we're in right now, is we can find a way to serve you guys better. And I'm a real proponent of that center, so please forgive me.
Smaller organizations, decentralized. Anybody else want to get on that?
If I had a dream fix for some of the problems that are going on right now, it'd be to take what the VA does so well and translate that out to the community providers so that it would open up the possibilities for veterans to go to community resources and get that same level of care. And that's something that would definitely need to be addressed at a legislative level with policy change. And I know even here in our community, the orthopedics just started opening up their doors to more care for veterans, but that means that a whole lot of paperwork had to happen on the back end to cross the red tape. And so from an access perspective, that would really open up a lot of doors and a lot of treatment and help for folks.
Greg, you've got the microphone in your hand. Oh, Wayne.
So from my perspective, they are doing some things right. They've made it more streamlined so that people that are doing a bad job can get fired. So that's a good thing. In my world, that's a great thing because there's a lot of openings now coming open in the VA. So, we look at the positive side of it.
The only thing I was going to say, Jamie, on this is that I see a lot of the vet-to-vet hire emails come through, and I talk to quite a bit of the hiring agents. Currently in the VA, only 38% of the VA are veterans. And getting them back into that teamwork perspective, I know that for myself, quite often I work hand in hand with the CBOC a lot, and if we have an issue or they have an issue, we call each other. We go, hey, we got this guy. This guy needs help now. What can we do? And not to say that the other non-veteran employees that work at the VA are any better or any worse, just that we oftentimes, we see that as a brother. We need to take care of that brother, take care of that shipmate. So we need to hire a lot of those veterans into the VA system.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to introduce this gentleman. This is Greg. He's our outreach manager over at the Vet Center. So he's doing an outstanding job going out on the highways and byways and letting veterans know where.
We've had a couple follow-up questions from the audience, but David, I know you've waited too. Okay.
Can I say one more thing about the Vet Center? And is Doc Bueller still here?
Yes. Hi, David.
Okay, him and Dick Tobias, and I know everybody cringes when they hear Dick's name every once in a while, and we've all bumped heads with him, but Dick does a lot of good stuff. And we think of Bend as being this wonderful big place and all of that stuff, but it's a rural community in the VA's world. And one of the things of letting our vets, every day of the year, every single day of the year, the van takes from World War II to Vietnam, to Korean War guys, all the way over to Portland to be treated, and then all the way back. For some of these guys, the trip is worse than the treatment is. And finally, we're starting, some of this stuff is coming over this side of the mountain to be treated. And it's a big thing. And Doc, if you want to piggyback on that.
Yeah, you know, I've had experience treating veterans both in the Veterans Administration. I worked 5 years in Portland, VA during my training, so I saw it from the inside. And now being here in Bend and treating veterans in the private sphere. And there's lots of things that the VA system does very well and has a unique skill set and has to be maintained. And we all know those important skills. But it's also unfair and unreasonable to ask veterans from Central Oregon to travel 4 hours in a van in inclement conditions when they're not feeling well, sick, and elderly, when we can take care of them here in Central Oregon. And that PC3 program allows that to happen. Now it just takes the veterans organizations to get out into the medical community then and make sure those contracts get signed. And I'm sure the medical community here in Central Oregon will sign them. We did it, it took some effort, but it's done now. So those doors are starting to open and they should continue to open. And the sad thing is, that contract, that program was supposed to be wrapped up by April. And without pushing from the outside, people like Dick Tobiasen and the national media scrutiny, I don't think that program would have been up and going. We had to inquire about it. No one was out coming and seeking out providers. I don't know why. It's still a mystery to me why that wasn't being implemented.
My magic wand, as you asked, two things real quick. One, turn the VA into an insurance company that we can use to go see whatever doctor we choose. That way we can also hold them accountable for malpractice if we so choose. Two, make a one-stop shop, all the service providers that exist under one roof, and then have the nonprofits as well. And that would be, I think, an easy fix. Veteran can go to one place, get all the services that they need, and then still have your nonprofits, because as we know, some veterans are just very anti-government once they get out, so they can still use the nonprofits for the other services that they could also need. That'd be my magic wand. And I know it'll never happen.
Boy, howdy, if there was ever a moment in time to push this fee basis sort of system.
We do. We have a couple of things, and it's getting close to the wrap up. Two things I don't want to miss out on are, we didn't get here, but we were talking about jobs, and I have come to learn that there are a number of veterans who are entrepreneurs in the community. Obviously, we have a lot of entrepreneurs. And Steve and Jose, I know you're both here from the Small Business Development Center at COCC, and even just quickly, are there dollars for entrepreneurs that are veterans here? And David, you've got the loose mic. I've got the one that I'm tethered. So.
Yes, so I'm Steve Curley with the Small Business Development Center, and we do have funds to help veterans either start businesses or grow their businesses. We've been working on this for a little over a year now. You say Jose? Jose is a veteran and has been working with a lot of those businesses individually, one-on-one. I think one of the challenges that we face, and JW, you brought this up, is people don't self-identify as veterans. So that makes it very difficult for us to get them into those programs. Another challenge that we've seen is that the younger vets really aren't prepared to start a business yet. The people that we've worked with are the veterans from some of the previous conflicts that are established. They maybe have a job and now they have that dream of starting a business, and they come to us and we help them with that. So we do have, it was actually the funds that we have were kind of a legacy of partnership and poverty, and we continue to have those and deploy those funds for veterans. We'd like to do that more. It is difficult to get the word out. It is difficult to find those guys who will self-identify and take advantage of that. So any thoughts or comments in that area would be appreciated.
Anybody who wants to comment back to him? Or Any of you that want to address what he's sharing real quickly?
So in dealing with veterans coming to me looking for employment, that is one of the questions that I ask them. You know, are you interested in doing a small business? Do you have any ideas? And I have your card right next to me. I scanned it and made several copies and I give it to them. So they're directed to come see you, come talk to you. I know that it's work in progress, but I think we'll get it.
Thank you. Before we leave, I just wanted to mention the two 800-pound gorillas in the room when we're talking about veterans. And that's post-traumatic stress disorder and also traumatic brain injury. It's pretty consistent with all the wars that about 30% of all veterans come back with chronic post-traumatic stress disorder. And if you take a look at that, it's a lot of guys that suffer a lot. And there's also a lot of the 70% that don't have the diagnosable disorder that suffer a lot. But even with all those veterans, they still make excellent employees. And I think we often tend to forget because of the stigma of mental health issues, the stigma of brain injury issues. There are people out there that want to work, they want to do a good job for you, they want to earn a living, they want to take care of their families. And I don't want that to get lost tonight, that we do have an excellent workforce when we're talking about working with veterans.
Piggybacking on that, if they do have post-traumatic stress, I know you're thinking ADA and reasonable accommodations, but oddly enough, most of the reasonable accommodations for TBI and post-traumatic stress are free. You know, it's very easy to give them that reasonable accommodation, and it doesn't cost your business any money. Like I said before, in fact, the value of that veteran is more than the total cost of employment, even with the reasonable accommodations. I was diagnosed with both TBI and post-traumatic stress, and I think that I bring a value that I can let you guys know. I've overcome a lot of the issues that I've had, and wouldn't you want somebody in your workforce, as an employee that has overcome issues like that, and that brings that to the table, they can overcome a challenge like that. And in regards to our National Guard soldiers who are going to be coming back in roughly about a year, they're still going to be in the Guard. So they're going to be going to their drill weekends, and during the summer, usually in the summer, I've been there in the winter, you go through 2 weeks of annual training. So you're getting, Department of Defense is training these people to be leadership material, to be supervisors at no cost to you, and then they come back and work for you. Free training, you don't have to pay to send them to some leadership school. They're getting that from Department of Defense, a very expensive education also.
Question here?
We have a question at the back.
I'm a veteran and I've been through Central Oregon's business program for a degree for business management. And in that we have to create a business plan. And I don't know if you guys do this, but part of the thing was once I created it, I realized I didn't want to do it. I can't deal with people like that. But do you guys work with the business program for like them to create business plans that you guys can give to them?
Absolutely. That's one of the key things that we do is help people develop their business plans, put together their financial projections, look at their pricing, everything that they need to do to make a business successful. And so we work one-on-one. And there are a lot of people that when they begin to plan their business, they realize that they don't want to do the business, and that's okay. That's a good road that they've discovered, and so they can go do something else. And I will say one other thing about what we do, and Jose just got back from Deer Ridge Correctional Institute. We have some entrepreneurship programs we run up there, and we found we usually do a 2-month program, July and August, with a graduation in September. And this year we discovered that there were about 9 veterans up there that wanted to participate in the program. So we created a separate cohort for those veterans, and Jose is teaching that and leading the advising on that. So we have found some veterans in that setting, and they were very excited to have the opportunity to be able to work on their businesses, so that when they get out, that's a whole other issue, maybe for another town hall, Jamie, about reintegrating back into society.
And Wendy, you have held your tongue all evening, and I wondered if maybe there was some thought that you had really wanted to share that we hadn't got to real quickly. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Great.
Well, I'm Wendy Rudy. I'm with Heart and Home Hospice and Palliative Care, and I kind of have a unique experience in that I was a veteran for 13 years. I was a Navy Corpsman stationed in the Marine Corps where I met my husband. I also work with veterans at end of life, and I'm also family group readiness leader. So I kind of get the different perspectives in there. And there's a lot of points that were brought up, and we can go off on a lot of different tangents. One of the things that I see with a lot of the veterans, being a veteran myself, is when we're trained to work with the Marines, I'm basically their doc. So is my husband. When we're in the field, we treat, diagnose, and write prescriptions, and the medical officer signs off on those. In the civilian world, it doesn't mean anything. I could not even work for $10 an hour as a CNA because I didn't have a CNA certificate, though all my training superseded everything a CNA does. That's a certified nursing assistant. So I think that that's a problem. The training that they provide for us might be condensed, a 2-year program shoved into 8 months, but I guarantee you the training that we are provided by our military supersedes a lot of the civilian counterparts. My friend and I compare notes with what she did in nursing school and with what I did as a corpsman, and I could run circles around her. I'm in Humvees doing IVs. I'm up in a helo doing IVs. I'm working on people that have major trauma that they haven't seen. Same for my husband. And in the civilian world, it means nothing. Not only do they send us to that training, but now they've changed the system where when you're drilling status, you can't even get an aspirin as a medic. That has to go out. We're going to send them to the hospital. We're going to send them to the emergency room because they have heat stroke. So we're not able to use that. The only time that's able to be used is in combat situations. So it's kind of, that, you're good enough for combat situation, but you're not good enough at drill, and you're certainly not good enough for the civilian role. So what type of message are we sending our veterans then? And what type of incentive is it for them to continue training and do what they do? The second part of it is in, dealing with PTSD. I mean, I see the end of life part where we're having to ask them, what keeps you up at night? What is that lingering thing? And we have a lot of veterans. I'm lucky that our company is very veteran-centric, and that every single person I do an intake on is, are you a veteran? When did you serve? Because when they serve makes a huge difference. What war era are you from? Because each one is going to have a different set of symptoms and cultures and things that may not fit, it doesn't fit this one size. Oh, you have PTSD from Afghanistan is not going to be the same as something from Vietnam. And that's something that I think that we need to focus on and recognize, from the VA, from the Vet Center. And I think we need to involve our legislators a little bit more in, what type of training, is acceptable to meet our drill status, our civilian status, and our combat situation. What type of PSD are we going to train the civilian counterparts on? These are things to look for. When you see someone who's drinking excessively and they served in the combat or even served in the military, there's a lot of sexual assault trauma that women have endured, and some males too, that we don't address that needs to be addressed at the forefront. So I mean, there's a lot of good things, but I think besides the community employers asking, have you served? Are you a veteran? What war era did you serve in? When were you in? How can we help you? And then recognize that the training that they've received is probably far better than any college institution I have ever seen. And then getting our legislators involved in helping, we need more medical care. Again, sending them up to Portland for 4 hours. A lot of these guys are 94 years old. Oh, you're gonna have to go to Portland and do that 8 hours round trip. And maybe, now the voucher system, they're not getting paid for it, so they have to have the money up front. A lot of them are living paycheck to paycheck because what they did in the military doesn't count as civilian. So there's a lot of different aspects that I think we need to focus on. And then as a wife of a service member, is educating the families on what is available to them. And we're lucky, our guard unit is amazing. We have great staff there. We have family advocate specialists, we have VERSAs, a lot of different acronyms a lot of people aren't familiar with, but are there to help support the families. But it takes a community and it takes our legislators to really educate on the different benefits and how they can help. So I hope I didn't take too much time.
Is it Wendy?
Yes.
Hi Wendy, I really appreciate you correcting all these Army guys that the correct terminology is helo and not chopper. I haven't heard that for a long time, so I appreciate that. Hey, my name is Kyle Johnson. I'm a Director of Operations at St. Charles Health System for the Madras and Prineville hospitals. I was one of those veterans when I got out, OIF, OEF veteran, could not get a job. Applied to 50 places. I remember when I got my first big interview, and lots of questions, not a single one about my veteran experience. And so right now at the St. Charles Health System, what we try to do is we have a mentorship program where we try to pair veterans up with other veterans coming into the health system. I know as a male infantry platoon commander going into an all-female HR department in a health system, I was sweating, bombs my first month not to drop the F word. It was tough. And anyway, there's a lot of little things that can be helped along. So I relate to a lot of these things that have been talked about this evening. What I'd like to offer, though, is on August 21st from 1400 to 1700. That's 2 to 5 p.m. for you civilian types. St. Charles Health System is gonna host the very first Central Oregon Veterans Conclave, and it's gonna be rapid fire. We're gonna have 3 different panels. One, we're gonna be talking about healthcare. The other one, we're gonna be talking about jobs, training, and education. And the other one, we're gonna be talking about leadership in the community. I would also like to say that we have 2 candidates, 2 legislature candidates here, Dr. Newt Bueller and Mr. Craig Wilhelm. And I'm going to be inviting these candidates to come on the leadership forum. So, and I just can put this as an ambush right now. Boom, boom, bang, bang. And so I just want to let you know that both of you gentlemen are going to be invited. It's not a debate. We're going to have a general officer that's going to be on the same panel, just to make sure they regulate things in case you guys get out of hand. But basically what we want to do is we want to talk about some of these real issues affecting veterans and highlight these things and really come up with some great solutions about what we could do about them here in our community. So I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to see things like this. Love living in Central Oregon. Couldn't imagine a better place to be a veteran. Thank you.
Thank you.
I work in the HR industry, which is pretty female dominated, and I was also an infantry grunt.
Still employed, man.
Walking in there after 2 years of being unemployed, I was doing the same thing, and I can relate to that.
F-bomb is okay with some of us.
And they're called choppers.
So we're a little over time. I see still a hand up though, and I just want to be respectful and give you an opportunity for comment, sir, or quick question. Again, you'll either have to come to me or...
I don't think I need a microphone. No, you know. My name is Steve, and I'm with the Oregon Vet Motorcycle Association, and a chopper is a motorcycle, okay? What I also want to say, listening to Wendy, et cetera, and about how the vet's coming back, they've got 8 years, 10 years, 4 years, whatever it is, and they have all these skills and training. We have a system in this country called the GED, but it's run by the states, General Equivalency Diploma, for people that don't get through high school, but then they can come out later on, after a couple of years, or whenever it is, they decide to do it. They can take a test and they get their diploma. I would think that if the state of Oregon cared about their vets, meaning the governor and the Oregon Department of Veteran Affairs, we should be able to put together something called a Professional Equivalency Certification, a PEC, where it's an exam. I mean, it's an exam like the docs take and that sort of thing, but at different levels. For an electronics technician, for an electrician journeyman level, for somebody who was a medic and wants to take the test for certified nursing assistant, or even a registered nurse. They should be able to take the test and be able to utilize all the stuff they learned in the military. Now I know the Pentagon is working on something. Good Lord, let's pray for them. That will probably take at least 20, 30 years to get it out. The state can control it. They control the certifications now, right? They should be able to say, you don't have to go to school, and you got to take this. You should be able to say, you take this equivalency exam, and you get your certification.
And
I would much rather have a vet treating me than somebody who just went through some academia. Really.
Schools would fight you on that.
Professional
Steve, some of the states have limited certifications. The state of Oregon will fight you on that. The education system fights you on that.
Then we need to have our lawmakers step up.
Gotcha.
And real quick also, this ties on to the GE thing you said, if there's any Vietnam era veterans or any combat veteran Vietnam era, they don't have to have gone overseas, but the other wars they have to have gone overseas, that does not have a high school diploma, the state of Oregon will issue them one. No questions asked. So take that if you have any friends, family, neighbors that are Vietnam era veterans that didn't finish high school because they decided to go into the service and serve their country. they'll get a diploma. Just call the superintendent or hook up with me. I'll call the superintendent. We'll get them a diploma. That's only the state of Oregon, by the way.
Been a pretty resourceful and insightful evening. Anybody here learned something new they didn't already know from those around them, at least from the groups? Yeah, lots of heads nodding, even from those who are familiar with one another. So, big thank you to all of you, our panelists here tonight, putting yourselves out on the line to converse with us. Big round of applause to all of them. Thank you, of course, to my friend David Blair for stepping up to the plate. He always does a great job being conscientious of what to discuss. Thank you, Representatives Wisnett and Huffman, for your participation and your generosity as well. And to all of you that are here tonight, this was huge to have each and every one of you here. Bonnie's reminding me, don't forget to fill out the Veterans Day Parade form. We have those both online here with us. They're free to participate, yes. And we have surveys. And if you would please just take a minute to fill out the survey and turn those in to the sweet ladies of the house. Robbie.
One question. On the Veterans Day Parade, can the motorcycles please be in front of the horse?
Common sense, yeah. And the motorcycles be in front of the horses. Have a wonderful and safe and blessed 4th of July, each and every one of you. Thank you for coming.